we make events. How did that all come about? What's your role within it? I know it was spoken briefly as it was kind of kicking off, but I was doing other things at the time, so I kind of sounds odd. I kind of missed it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, well,
It was,
well, to be honest, I missed the start of it, Mick. In a brief kind of history of what happened back in March, um, 2020, there was I think it was the 24th somewhere, whatever that Thursday that was close to the 24th. I think it was the 24th of March, but that might have been the Saturday. Can't remember. But anyway, at the end of March, the clap for the carers thing started.
yeah,
The NHS thing where everybody went and stood outside. Um, the Saturday before that clap started happening, I got a phone call from a friend, Gary White, who runs White Productions in England, and he looks after kind of high end events. Gary and I met working on Sports Personality of the Year whenever it was in Belfast in 15. And he would do a lot of work with the likes of the Formula One and those sort of high end sporting events. But anyway, he phoned me and said that he'd been speaking to a few people over there, and he wanted involvement from Northern Ireland. And we've been friends for a number of years, so he thought I was the man to organise it. And we were gonna that Saturday night. We sat at the two ends of the phone, glasses of whiskey in hand, coming up with this fantastic idea that we could run around the country lighting up landmark buildings and landmarks blue in honour of the NHS to coincide with the clap for our carers, but to be a show of appreciation for the health service, specifically from the events industry, and also to show that we are a professional body of people who are used to working at last minute and short notice and turning out shit hot stuff. So we had this idea, we were going to get everything lit up blue, and then uh, the Monday after the Saturday before the Thursday, is whenever Boris locked everything down. So suddenly that idea was totally scuppered because we couldn't go out. We were going to put a couple of guys in vans and drive them around the country and go and light up the causeway blue and light up that's the dog drinking water if you can hear a weird sound. Uh, so Charlie. So yeah, that was the idea. That then had to change, and we had to start coordinating buildings that could light up blue, but without having to put people out on the roads and with all that sort of thing. So anyway, that lighted up blue then turned into make it blue because we got to the day of the clap, and a couple of the Wednesday before we went, here, hang on a minute, tomorrow we light everything blue, then this is over. That's a bit of a shame because we've actually achieved something in 4 days. We've done something pretty massive. We got something like, I think the first week we got over 50 locations around the whole of the UK to light up. So we went, right, let's do something else. So before we even did the light it up blue, we had the make it blue campaign running. And in the first instance, it was my responsibility to try and get people from Northern Ireland faces from Northern Ireland to make a short video around the theme of blue with a thank you NHS thing in the end of it. And I got Glenn Irwin, the superbike rider. I've known Glenn for many years, and the family for about 15 years. So I got Glenn and Andrew Irwin, his brother, both doing it. I got all the British Superbike riders doing it. I actually got the organizer from British Superbikes to look after that for me. We had Shanine Brennan did it, Zoe Salmon did it. So we got a number of people doing that, and then we got that out into the rest of the UK. So that all became something. Make It Blue turned then into a bit of a global thing. It started happening around the world, and we ended up turning it into a CIC, community interest company, and a fundraiser to then filter money into specifically into mental health charities for the events sector was
yeah.
the benefactor from it. So we did a lot of work with that, and we got that going global, and it was pretty huge. Fast forward then from March to sort of July time, and Gary phoned me again, and said that basically Plaza had approached him. So Plaza, Professional Light and Sound Association, had set up the We Make Events idea, if you like, obviously as a body to try to raise awareness and raise help and aid for those in our industry and the events sector who are being affected by COVID, and the fact that we can't get any work happening. So they had approached Gary. At that point, there were more organizations shouting the same message than you could imagine. So Gary's reluctance in the first place to jump on the We Make Events came through the fact that he said, if you've got lots of voices shouting the same thing but from different angles, you'll get a nod from Parliament, and that will be it. It will not make any difference. So he basically tasked them to go away, get everybody else to come under one banner and come, and then he would help. So he had got in touch with me and said, they've done this, and we now want to run something across the whole of the UK again, but on the We Make Events campaign, and speaking up for people from our industry. So rather than a thank you from our industry, this was now a help us, a cry for help. I couldn't get involved at that point. That was in July, and obviously I'm a director of PSI. I have my own business, and I had poured so much time and effort into the Make It Blue campaign that I really needed to pay some attention to keeping PSI afloat. So at that point, I couldn't help them. I put them on to someone else locally. Malcolm Smith looked after a bit of it for me. But because of the timing, particularly here, venues, all their staff were on furlough. So there wasn't really anything could happen in Northern Ireland at that point. And they were working towards the 11th of August. And on the 11th of August, they held a huge event in London. They had people, reporters on a barge which they sailed down the Thames, and they had actors and performers on the bridges, socially distanced, all wearing red, and it was a big spectacle, and it was a big media spectacle, really. And it was called Red Alert, and the idea was, if the government don't do something to help our sector, this is going to be the last show you ever see. So I couldn't be involved in that. And Northern Ireland's response was unfortunately quite small because of the restrictions at the time, and we couldn't get people out. Immediately, I was concerned that if We Make Events was successful and got help for people in the events sector, if it wasn't of as high a profile in Northern Ireland, then the 7,500 people who work in the creative industries and the events sector in Northern Ireland would be missed out. We wouldn't get the attention. So on the 13th of August, I got on the phone to Gary and went, right, I have my ducks in a row here. I'm taking over Northern Ireland to do this, to promote it. So that's where my involvement came from. We then staged a kind of show of numbers for our industry, because even now, even with the work that we've done with We Make Events, I don't want to get political, obviously, but politicians and the people who make the decisions supposedly on our behalf literally don't know who we are or how many of us there are, because our profession, our expertise lies in being invisible and not being seen backstage. So I have addressed the Committee for Communities, and all of the MLAs on that committee said we had no idea there were so many people involved in it. People don't realize that to put an event on in the arena, you could be looking at a solo artist in the arena, but it takes upwards of 400 people to get that person on that stage for the people to come and see it. So that's what it's turned into. We then had a nationwide, across the whole of the UK, we had a target date of the 30th of September. And on the 30th, what we did was we got venues to light up red, and we had 60 pillars of light. There were 8 of them in Northern Ireland. The rest were in Scotland, Wales, and England. And each pillar of light represented 10,000 people who worked in the industry, whose jobs were at risk. So, so we had 8 pillars in Northern Ireland. We had Belfast, Bangor, Derry. They were all over the place. So we just had columns of white light. But prior to that, we felt in Northern Ireland that we were one step behind everybody else, because they'd had their big event in London, and Manchester on the same day as that had done their flight case push and everything, and Northern Ireland hadn't had the chance to kind of wave our fists. So so we arranged an event for the Friday before that, which I should know this off by heart. I think it was the 25th of September, but it might have been the 24th. It seems like forever ago, and it was only September. But we arranged a socially distanced, COVID compliant show of numbers event in Custom House Square. And the beauty of Custom House Square is it's made of paving stones that are 2 meters by 2 meters. So we went down in the morning and we marked the whole place out. And when people arrived, it was all properly done. Everyone was registered to come beforehand. They all got assigned a place, and everybody went to their square. We got some amazing footage from it, really good visuals of around about 500 people who turned up, which was really neat as well, because it meant that in future, which is now the past, but in future we could use those images to say, this is how many people it takes to put on one event. All of these people in this square would put on one show. So, you know, and there were so many people who couldn't make it. We had a number of people who were getting in touch while we were conceiving this, saying, I'd love to be involved in this, but I physically can't. I can't get to you. I'm not allowed to get to you, or I've got some, you know, some people had to take other work. So, you know, so people were driving delivery vans or whatever, and they were saying we can't get there. So, so we decided to then make a We Make Events logo page with their name on it and their occupation, and give them a square as well, which then gave us, you know, it meant that they were there, if not in person, they were there in name with us. And it showed the diversity, because we had everything for, you know, the obvious things were crew and singers and box office and that, but then we had accountants, you know, we had lawyers, we had all those people who aren't immediately associated with working behind the scenes, but are a vital part of any event. So we had that. We had the use of an apartment at the top of the boat building. We had the use of an apartment in the block beside Custom House Square. So we got different angles, and it looked really, really good. And everyone who turned up, did the shoot, dispersed properly the way they were meant to. You know, we organizing it, we obviously were shitting ourselves that I mean we actually set out not to invite the press. We were going to control the press ourselves, and the main reason for doing that was the last thing we needed was 2 guys who haven't, bearing in mind this is September, people haven't seen each other for 6 months. And you know yourself, Mick, in this industry, the people you work with are your family. They're not just your colleagues, they're your family, friends, closest buddies. And not seeing people for 6 months, it was an emotional day. We had 500 people together, and everybody knew everybody else. And our absolute fear at the time was that, what if that guy and that guy haven't seen each other for ages come together and they get photographs standing a foot apart? So we didn't want the press there. We wanted to run the photography. As it turned out, the press had heard about it, and it was a big buzz, so it couldn't avoid it. But everybody, every single person there understood what we were doing, understood what was happening, and behaved immaculately. They behaved like professionals, because that's what they are. You know, it doesn't matter what we've been trying all the way through this. with no disrespect to the 1960s style roadies, we've been trying to dispel the idea that people who work in events are just those 1960s style roadies. They're everybody. It's you, it's me, it's accountants, it's everyone, you know, and you have everybody from all walks of life in it. So it was a body. We Make Events was a body that was put together to help and to try and get the message into Westminster. We're still doing that. I sit on the political group. I'm dealing with all the politics in Northern Ireland. It's an absolutely bizarre situation because you that know me know that I am probably the most apolitical person that I know. I have no interest whatsoever. I had to take a bit of a crash course from Google on even finding out who the people in Stormont are and what they do and who's responsible for what and who likes who and who's in each other's wee gang. Um, but I'm kind of proud of the fact that We Make Events Northern Ireland has been, as I see it, one of, if not the first organisation that has managed to get the same engagement across the board with every one of the political parties that we've dealt with, and they all agree. We've actually made Stormont agree with us. It was brilliant. Now we're not getting the engagement that I would like because possibly they're just fed up listening to me, and there are other issues that they're dealing with. But the important thing that I'm trying to get across is there are other issues that they're dealing with, but we haven't gone away. We're not fixed yet. You know, the people in our industry haven't had a fix. So you know, they're still out of work. They still have no prospect. They don't know. We don't know when we're going to come back to work because every other sector has at least either had a chance to come back or knows that at the end of a lockdown they're going to come back. We're not. We don't know when we're coming back. Um, and some people have got a little bit of work on streaming gigs. Some people have got a little bit of work on socially distanced gigs when they're happening. But it's not sufficient to sustain anyone. Um, so that's the message that we're putting out there now. And I am from Mr. No Politics, Mr. Protestant Primary School in a Catholic area with an Irish name, wanting to be German, and now involved in politics. Uh, you know, I'm still pushing on with that, but yeah, that's what We Make Events is about at the moment.